Shalom and welcome to Temple Talk. Today, the 17th day of the month of Kislev, 5778. It is the 5th of November, 2017. And this week, the Torah portion of Vayeshev. Dear listeners, it is so wonderful to be back with you. I don't think we had a Temple Talk the entire November. Yitzchak and I have been away. We are now reunited in the holy city of Jerusalem, the alleged capital of Israel. And actually, we had a wonderful event earlier in the month of November, a temple conference, Holy Temple Conference in the great state of Texas. It was well attended, a really beautiful event, maybe one of the most wonderful and important events we ever held. Kudos to all those that organized that wonderful event, and it was wonderful seeing so many people there. Thank you all for coming. And then we had some traveling, so we haven't been back together until today, where we can tell you that you have 1 week of shopping to do before Chanukah. 7, not counting Shabbat, days of shopping, if shopping for gifts has anything whatsoever to do with Hanukkah, which actually I don't think it does. 7 days to move the embassy to Jerusalem, if Hanukkah has anything to do with moving the embassy to Jerusalem, which I actually think it does. And enter Yosef, the tzaddik, the incredible metaphor, the whole real story of the struggle of Yosef and his brothers, which begins in this week's Torah portion. What is that all about? That great mystery, Parshat Vayeshev, all the things that are happening there, and the fate of Yosef to be sold down to slavery in Egypt. So, big stories are in the news today, this week, this month, lately, and you know, when you live with a Torah, pardon me that I don't feel so well today, ladies and gentlemen. When you live with a Torah and you are sensitive to the broadcast of and the influence and the impact of the Torah portion on our everyday life, you understand that we're part of a program here, and that there are huge cosmic themes of rectification that are being worked out. Anyway, big story in the news for some time now, it's been going on and on and on, is the concept of sexual harassment. It doesn't go away. Every day there are more and more allegations against this one and that one, whether they're Hollywood stars, big surprise there, or politicians, big surprise there, who are accused of all sorts of impropriety. I find all of this amazing in the light of this week's Torah portion, which highlights and spotlights Joseph, the dreamer. His brothers call him the master of dreams. And by the way, this month of Kislev is known in the sources of the mystical tradition as the month of dreams, partly because of the simple reason that the majority of the dreams that are recorded in the Torah are all read during those Torah portions are read during this month of Kislev. Yosef's rise to prominence, to fame, was really based on two dreams, really, on his own dreams that he told over to his family, to his father and his brothers, and also on Pharaoh's dream. But Yosef is identified consistently with the concept of sexual purity and withstanding that test, as testified by the incident of the wife of his master Potiphar. So I just think that all that is really interesting, considering the unraveling of so many careers, personalities, stars, politicians, whatever, with all of the things that are going on. And how the Torah goes out of its way to testify that Yosef, who was a very real person, who was very, very human, and who was exceedingly good-looking young man in a position of prominence, did the right thing because he was so God-conscious, because he was so connected to the reality of Hashem in his life, and that's just a thought. But of course, the main concept of this month the pinnacle of this month, the source of all of the splendor and illumination of this month, is Chanukah, which is all about the rededication of the altar in the Holy Temple. It's all about the battle of the family of Kohanim, known as Hashmonai, otherwise known as the Maccabees, not the singing group, the real ones, the first ones. And their battle against oppression, basically, against what is known as the Greek or the Greco-Syrian army and kingdom that sought to not destroy the temple physically, but more destroy the Jewish people spiritually. What they did was they not only defiled the temple, but they enacted a series of rules, decrees against the Jewish people that were designed to conceal the divine presence in the world. They forbade the Jewish people from studying Torah. They defiled the temple. They forbade the Jewish people from sanctifying time, which of course is a pinnacle and a cornerstone of the Jewish approach to life, to realize that time is an element that we can use to latch onto Hashem in every vibration of our lives. So they forbade the Jews from marking the new moon, they forbade the Jews from keeping the Sabbath, and they forbade the Jews from circumcising their children, which is also a cornerstone of Jewish faith and identity. And it was all about accepting what they considered to be rational thought, scientific thought, what can be proven, what can be demonstrated, and that is this whole battle of what's called Greek wisdom opposite the wisdom of the Torah, which actually begins where science ends, because it is the science of faith in Hashem and belief in what can't be necessarily demonstrated scientifically. The miraculous, which is what Chanukah is all about, which is what Yosef is all about. So here is the idea that everything that this month represents and everything that the festival of Chanukah represents, which is why I said, tongue-in-cheek, 7 shopping days left until Chanukah. Who cares? It's not, it's a westernization, a gentilization, a paganization of Chanukah to mark it by giving gifts. You want to give gifts? It's fine with me, but that's not, this is not an imitation of another holiday. Chanukah is about one thing and one thing only, and that is about spiritual rededication through physical self-sacrifice and readiness to lay down one's life, really, nothing short of that, for the home, for everything about the home. We always say this unbelievable idea that is so obvious, but yet it's so beautiful, that Chanukah, which of course is not a major holiday and that it's not one of the biblically mandated festivals that requires pilgrimage to the temple, but Chanukah is a later holiday. Chanukah is the only festival that you need a house for. Think about it. Because on all the other pilgrimage festivals, Passover, Sukkot, Shavuot, you go up to the temple from wherever you live. Passover, you have to eat the Passover offering in the walled city of Jerusalem. Shavuot, you have to bring the first fruits. Sukkot, obviously, for sure you don't need a house. You're supposed to leave your house. But on Chanukah, you have to light the Chanukah, the candles commemorating the miracle of the oil in the Holy Temple and commemorating the victory of our forefathers and their steadfastness and their willingness to fight. You have to light those lights in your front door or in the window of your home or right outside your home, because what Chanukah is all about is a battle for the home. It's a very home front kind of time. And you know what? The wicked Antiochus, king of Syria, Greece, Yavan, was defeated. And that was really something. But the struggle goes on, and it's the same struggle, the struggle for our right as a people to be independent and sovereign in our own land, and for us to maintain our way of life and our priorities, which first and foremost is a relationship with God in this world, and the ability to bring about rectification and the ability to do God's will. That's the only reason why we exist. And none of that has changed. So I'm thinking about all of this, okay? I'm thinking about Yosef and his purity and the goal that we aspire to, which is to be pure like Yosef. And I'm thinking basically about the battle for Jerusalem. which is what Chanukah was all about, because the Holy Temple is Jerusalem. Jerusalem is the Holy Temple. And the idea is that the other story that's very big in the news, especially as we go to Mike today, is the fact that last night the waiver ran out and President Trump did not sign it. What am I talking about? Everybody knows that Congress passed a bill in 1995 that the United States Embassy has to be moved to Jerusalem. And the United States maintains a diplomatic relationship with, I forgot how many countries, less than 200, but there was a whole, I saw exactly how many. And in each instance, every single case, the United States recognizes the capital of that country as is, I would think, a country tells you what their capital is. You don't tell them what their capital is. And in every instance, the embassy of the United States is in that capital. And there's only one exception, and you guessed it. That is Jerusalem, because Jerusalem is officially not recognized as the capital of Israel because it is politically inconvenient for the world's, and as the United States puts it, it is not in the security / strategic interests of the United States at this point. And therefore, even though Congress passed the rule as a law, as an actual law, in 1995, that America has to move the embassy from Tel Aviv, which is not the capital of Israel, to Jerusalem, still there's this fine print. It's called a waiver, and every single sitting president since the bill was signed, right? In other words, Clinton, Bush, and Obama, every 6 months they would sign this waiver, which says, well, it's the law, but I, as President of the United States, am vetoing the law temporarily for 6 months increments because it is not in the security interests of the United States, meaning can't alienate the Arab world, can't make them upset, can't make them angry, and therefore it's never been done, which of course is more than a simple insult to the people of Israel, greatest ally that the United States has and best friend that America has. It's more than just an insult. It's also a perversion of everything. It's a perversion of everything the United States was founded on and stands for. It's a perversion of justice. It's terrible discrimination and all sorts of other things. Anyway, President Trump ran on a platform of very boisterously, like he does everything else, very, very vociferously and very, very out there claiming that he is going to move the embassy to Jerusalem. 6 months ago, he signed the waiver that extended it again for 6 months. Well, he's kept on saying, and his representatives kept on saying, it's not a question of when. It's just a question of no. It's not a question of if. I definitely will. It's just a question of when. Well, last night the waiver ran out, and he didn't sign it, which some people are speculating means that that the beginning of the process of moving the embassy to Jerusalem has begun, because now that he let time go by, he can't sign it tomorrow. He can't sign it the next day. He's supposed to sign it as soon as it expires, but he didn't do that. And apparently, there are news stories that he is poised to make a major announcement, clarifying his position this week, maybe as early as today, maybe tomorrow, and people are saying, well, even if he doesn't move the embassy yet, perhaps the plan, and this was leaked or something, the plan is that, well, maybe he's not going to move the embassy, but he's going to officially declare that he recognizes Jerusalem as Israel's capital. And then, of course, other people are writing and speculating and saying, well, wait a minute, is this really what we even want? Because what price are we going to have to pay for that? What price are we going to have to pay for him moving the embassy to Jerusalem? Maybe we're going to have to accept a freeze on so-called settlement activity, on building homes. Maybe who knows what kind of double jeopardy, who knows what kind of reality or commitment he's going to foist on the state of Israel in payment for this great kindness of moving the embassy. Well, in the meantime, what's going on is that, first of all, the State Department is battening down the hatches. They are issuing all sorts of guidelines to their embassies all over the world to brace themselves for violence, because they're expecting the Arab world to erupt in violence and demonstrations if America goes ahead and recognizes and even declares that they recognize Israel as the capital. How much more so? Excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm allergic to. Anyway, how much more so if they actually move it? And then we have some great headlines like Turkey, that master criminal Erdogan is actually Recep Tayyip Erdogan is actually threatening to cut off diplomatic ties with Israel after not having diplomatic ties with Israel for 6 years, because he was so angry at us that the IDF soldiers defended their lives when the Maravi Marama broke the blockade, and we all saw the videos of the Turks beating the IDF soldiers with clubs and the arsenal of knives that they had. So he was very, very angry about that. So of course we were all terribly upset that there was no diplomatic relations with Turkey for 6 years, and now it's been restored. But he's saying, no, this is a red line for all Muslims. If you dare to declare that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, it's a red line for all Muslims that can't be crossed. So that's about Turkey. Of course, the EU, in the meantime, says, well, don't worry, because we're never moving our embassy. Our embassy will remain in Tel Aviv. So in the meantime, oh man, you ever hear the name Keith Ellison is the deputy head of the Democratic National Committee, a senator from Minnesota, says, and I quote, he says, if America recognizes Jerusalem as Israel's capital, and I quote, Keith Ellison, the deputy head of the DNC, says it will be a horrible tragedy. Those were his words, right? A horrible tragedy is how I would describe the Holocaust. He says it will be a horrible tragedy if America recognizes Jerusalem as Israel's capital. And the reason for that, he says, is because he believes in the two-state solution. The two-state solution means two states, an Israeli state and a Palestinian state, living side by side in peace and security. I have got so much to say about that. But all of this is just dovetailing and connected so tightly with everything that Chanukah is all about. You know what? This whole controversy and this whole discussion, this is a Chanukah present in itself, because it's an opportunity for us to get things so clear and to really understand what it is that we were fighting for then and what it is that we're fighting for now. And I don't see any difference whatsoever, because to call the right of the Jewish people to be able to claim their own city, mentioned 700 times in the Tanakh, in the Bible of Israel, to be able to call that our capital, for him to have the audacity to call that a horrible tragedy, because it'll be like circumventing the negotiation that has to take place about the future of where the capital is going to be. And of course it's going to be alienating the Arab world, which is a very, very big problem for everybody. You know what? You can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. I'll just pause to take my breath, because Yitzchak is also back from his travels, and he also wants to talk to you. Here he is.
Well, lots to say about this, Rabbi, but as a footnote on the status of Jerusalem in the eyes of the United States, not only is Jerusalem not recognized as Israel's capital, but it's not recognized as a city within the state of Israel, as everybody knows. Any child, Jewish child born in Jerusalem, doesn't matter, West Jerusalem, in internationally recognized hospitals.
Child of an American citizen, you mean?
A child of an American citizen born in any internationally recognized hospital in West Jerusalem, if you want to use the term West Jerusalem, does not get the word Israel on their passport.
Unbelievable.
Or on their
when he gets an American
card.
passport, the passport says place of birth, Jerusalem. As
No
if
state.
it's like Mars. It's like a city-state. It's like it doesn't exist within a country, because they can't bring themselves to say Jerusalem, Israel.
And this goes back, of course, to the original UN partition plan, in which Jerusalem, even then, nobody was about to recognize it as being Israel's future capital, but it was going to be internationalized. The United States has legally stuck to that position to this very day, that the fate of Jerusalem will be decided.
Now listen to me. This might sound really extreme to you. To you listeners, it might sound, like I'm exaggerating, but I don't see the difference between the wicked Greek king Antiochus enacting decrees that forbade the Jewish people to be Jews, to circumcise themselves, to keep Shabbat, and to study Torah, and the most powerful person in the world, the President of the United States, not recognizing Jerusalem as our city, because this is what it's all about. What does it mean to declare Jerusalem as the capital of Israel? It means that we admit that the Jewish people are a reality, that they have created something, that they deserve to be there, that it's theirs, that the future of that city is theirs. And we all know that that future, according to the Bible of Israel, is about the resting of the Shekhinah, the divine presence on Mount Moriah. It's about the building of the temple. It's about being a light to the nations. It's about all people being able to come there to pray. And until that is recognized, this is the Chanukah story right here. This is Antiochus. This is the Greeks attacking the temple. This is a pig being slaughtered on the altar in the holy temple, because you are defiling Jerusalem, and you are basically rendering it ownerless by saying that it doesn't belong to the Jewish people. And so it's perfect timing as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, Kislev, it's the month of dreams. And you know what? The dreams of the Jewish people always come true. Who was it that said, I'll let you be in your dream if you let me be in I'll let you be in my dreams if you'll let me be in yours. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. It's about our dreams. It's about Hashem's dreams. And there's something tremendously wrong with this picture. And yeah, to call it a horrible tragedy, well, there's a lot of horrible tragedies going on, and I can't imagine that the worst tragedy facing the American people is if, God forbid, Israel would be Jerusalem would be recognized as Israel's capital. Something's very, very strange about this story. But I hear the music. As you can see, we're back. Temple Talk is riding high in the saddle, and we'll be right back. Temple Talk.
Shalom and welcome back to Temple Talk. And howdy, y'all. That's just something I learned over in Texas at our West Texas Holy Temple Conference, Rabbi. And I know that people are listening to see if I really did pick up something, remember something from that wonderful experience. And there you go. The proof is in the greeting. I just want to reiterate what you said, Rabbi, earlier, and thank all those people who worked so hard to make it not only possible, but to make it such a beautiful event, and to also thank the people who attended, and wonderful, wonderful people there. Sincere,
and,
serious,
hopefully
good-hearted people.
In the not-too-distant future, in the pretty near future, we hope to have recordings,
Yes.
video of the entire conference. We will be putting it on YouTube, and it should be available through the Temple Institute's Facebook page, and we shall let you know when that's ready.
Absolutely. And
thanks to our good friend Jim for doing that hard editing work.
My friend Jim. And today, Rabbi, today is the 17th day of Kislev.
Yes, it is.
5778. It's the 5th day of December, 2017. And we have been talking about Parshat Vayeshev, which is the beginning of the very, very dramatic story of Yosef and his brothers, their separation, and ultimately, in the weeks to come, as we continue the story, their reunification. which is essential for Israel's eventual liberation from Egypt and emergence as a nation. And we've also been talking at great length, I will say, about things in the news, such as the possibility now of American recognition of Jerusalem as a city in the state of Israel and as Israel's capital. And you mentioned the threat, the Arab threat of violence and chaos.
And this is how it works in the Muslim world. You understand? They are threatening. It's a bold, bald, threat. They're saying, listen, if you dare to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital, it will be met with violence.
Right.
And so, I guess they won't, because after all, the State Department is getting all the embassies ready because they're expecting a surge of violence, and the president of Turkey, that gangster, is saying, this is a red line that can't be crossed. And everybody's very, very worried. France is very concerned, and Saudi Arabia is very concerned.
Oh.
Because, you know why? Because if Jerusalem is recognized as Israel's capital, it means that the Chanukah story is real. It means that the Jewish people are succeeding in bringing God into this world. And that has to be stopped at all costs by some people.
Now, the Arab threat of violence is always a winner, because the West always cowers to that threat, whether it's carried out or not. But however, there is a little twist this time, Rabbi, that not all the Arab countries are really so upset or concerned about this potential recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital by the United States. For example, Saudi Arabia. Again, if you've been following the news in recent weeks, there's a lot of rumors that Saudi Arabia and Israel are getting closer and closer together, diplomatically, even militarily, out of mutual concern over the continuous onslaught of Iranian influence and military presence in the Middle East, in Syria, in Lebanon, in Yemen, in Iraq. Just as they've always said, Iran has intentions to become the dominant force in the Middle East and basically put everybody in the Middle East under its hegemony.
And by the way, on that point, that another headline that's going on now is that there's a lot of speculation that there is a war imminent along Israel's northern border because of Iranian proxies, and because of Iran digging deeper and deeper and through its proxies.
Yes. Israel has warned many times now that it will not tolerate a Syrian presence, I think, anywhere within 50 kilometers of the Israel's northern border. And just last night, it was reported that Israel Air Force bombed an Iranian-built base, I think, somewhere, I think, outside of Damascus. I don't think that Israel has come out and openly admitted to doing that. But yes, things are really heating up. And Saudi Arabia, who is trying to create a coalition of Sunni Arab nations, who are the arch enemies of the Shia Muslims led by Iran, they are trying to create a coalition that they would like to include Israel as well, in order to be able to fight off and defeat Iran's incursion into the Middle East. Now, toward this aim, Saudi Arabia has been growing closer to Israel and seems to be distancing itself from the Palestinians. And one sign of this has been a very recent number of statements coming out of Saudi Arabia, which seem to be downgrading their relationship with the Palestinians. And there's a rumor that recently Abbas, the head of the Palestinian Authority, was recently in Saudi Arabia, and the rumors are that he was told by the Saudi authorities that they put a peace plan out there which is much, much less generous toward Palestinian aspirations than any peace plan put out before, And Abbas was told, you've got 2 months to either accept it or step down, told by the Saudis. Of course, he can't really accept it because it's such a downgrade from anything that he already previously rejected. But alongside this, there has been a whole Twitter campaign that seems to be inspired by Saudi Arabia, saying that Riyadh, which is the capital of Saudi Arabia, is more important than Jerusalem, meaning, reading between the lines, that the cat's out of the bag. Jerusalem really isn't so important to Islam. It doesn't really have any significance for Islam. Islam is based around Mecca and Medina, 2 cities in the country of Saudi Arabia. And the whole canard that Islam would suffer such a horrible blow against
like
this.
it's doing now with the whole business about the embassy, about warning because not to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital,
right?
Because of what it means for Islam,
right? So, of course, this is something that the Palestinians have been harping on and playing on for many, many years because this is what they want.
Because it's one of their key,
it's one of their
cards.
Their key cards. So, pundits are saying that it's very possible that countries like Saudi Arabia, Sunni countries like Saudi Arabia, like Egypt, like Jordan, will make a lot of noise at the Arab League or something about the American move, but not really do anything about it beyond that because they have too much on the line right now. They don't want to alienate the United States because they need the United States more than ever in order to try to fend off Iran. So
I sure hope that Trump and his advisors are listening to Temple Talk this week because we got it straight.
Yeah.
And,
we never know.
Could you open up your heart in the deepest way?
Well, I can do that for you, Rabbi.
I want to tell you. I want to share something with you, okay? I mentioned that Keith Ellison, the deputy head of the Democratic National Committee, called the possibility of America recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital a horrible tragedy.
Yes.
And he explained that the reason that he says that is because he believes in the two-state solution. 2 states, an Israeli state and a Palestinian state, living side by side in peace and security. You and I both know that line is it's nothing short of promiscuous, the line. It's lewd. I can't think of another way to describe it. It's so horrifically disgusting. It's a horrible tragedy, in fact, because it's a lie. It's
a code word. It's a code word for Israel's destruction.
Yes, it's a code word for Israel's destruction because everybody knows that the so-called Palestinians are not interested in living in peace with Israel, but that they are interested in slaughtering Israel and in claiming the entire land of Israel. And there isn't any question about that. There's nobody there that wants peace. So I spent some time now with some dear friends from Lubbock, Texas, here in the land of Israel, driving around, right? So we come and they're seeing Israel for the first time, and we see the wall. We see the wall that runs through the land of Israel. We go to Gush Etzion, we go to the tunnel road, and we see the huge walls on the side of the road, the highway. And I explained that these walls are here because the neighboring villages that are right over the highway would take pot shots and throw boulders at the Jewish cars, and it still happens occasionally in the cracks between the walls. And so we build these walls because they're trying to kill us. And we see the dividing wall, which is sick. Like, who builds a wall in the middle of their country, right? The wall is there because of incidents like the massacre of the Fogel family, like every killing and attempted killing that takes place because they come and they kill babies in their beds, Jewish children, and because they come to do everything that they can against us. But yet the Pope went and he prayed at the wall as if it was some sort of shrine, as if it was Auschwitz, and he prayed that there should be no longer any oppression and all these kind of things. How totally disgusting. Why do we have this wall here? Because they are trying to kill us. And is it normal? Absolutely not. Because what's on the other side of the wall is also mine. Who lives through 2,000 years of exile and diaspora and torture in order to come home and have to put a wall through their own heart, through their own very, very land? And like I say, the other side of the wall is also the land of Israel. Anyway, so we're driving, in the biblical heartland of the tribal portion of Benjamin, and I'm going to the home that I built in on a hilltop in the middle of the tribal portion of Benjamin. And so literally I say, but I have a house on that side of the wall, and I have a house on this side of the wall. And we passed the Palestinian villages that have these red signs at the entrance that were placed there by the government of Israel. You know what those signs say? The big red signs on each side of the entrance to the Palestinian villages that says, "Entrance to Israeli citizens is forbidden and is dangerous to your life." That's the signs that are posted outside. Those signs are not posted outside Jewish communities, not outside Jewish settlements, not outside Jewish towns, but those signs have to be posted outside every Palestinian village, because Jews who inadvertently, by mistake, wander into Palestinian villages are lynched and sometimes killed. So we see all this, right? We see all this. So last week, I think it was Thursday, there was a group of children and their parents that were hiking in the hills near our community, and they're set upon by a mob of tens of Arabs who were throwing boulders at them, who forced them into a cave, who stole the gun of one of the parents that were accompanying the children, and who... It's unbelievable what trauma the children went through. They held them, they took all their phones away from them, and they proceeded to beat them. And one of the parents serving as a guard over this trip of the school children's hiking, which was in honor of the bar mitzvah of one of the kids, fired into the air. It didn't help. Finally, he fired, and one Arab was killed. So that resulted in, of course, a day of rage and in massive protests all over the area of all the Arabs who were up in arms because they came and they tried to kill Jewish children and they tried to lynch them, but one of them was killed. How dare we? How dare we actually defend ourselves? So all this is happening last weekend, and we're driving on Friday to our home on our community hilltop, right? And we knew that it was going to be hairy, kind of dicey because of all of the tension in the air because of what's going on. So we come for Shabbat with our friends from America who are experiencing all of this for the first time. Friday night we're in my daughter's house for Shabbat meal, and all of a sudden the air raid siren goes off. The real air raid siren, the one that goes up and down like ooh. I'm not used to hearing that unless it was actually a missile threat. But in the communities in Yehuda and Shomron, this is done when there is a situation of danger as a signal that everyone has to go into their houses and lock themselves in. And that's what was going on now. And then the word came that everyone on Shabbat should put their telephones on so that they can get word of what's going on, because there's a serious situation. And what was the situation? The situation is that in the neighboring community across the valley, a family was sitting down to their Friday night meal, and someone was trying to get into the house, just like has happened already several Sabbaths that Jewish families have been slaughtered, and soldiers from their positions saw movement and they saw intruders, and so everybody had to hunker down and stay put as the army, with huge amounts of troops came with flares and with jeep patrols searching for the intruders, because there was obviously an attempted incursion was going on. It ended the way it began. It ended, and no one was found. And eventually, the signal was given that it was all clear and we could return to normal. But what's my whole point in telling you this story? The statement made the canard, you called it, made by Keith Ellison, the expression, I believe in a two-state solution where you have a state of Israel next to, side by side, with a Palestinian state living in peace and security. And why this makes me so angry, and I get so upset about it, and why I call it such names as promiscuous and lewd, and why I'm so angry, is because this is what we have every single day. They want to murder every Jewish man, woman, and child, and they do every opportunity that they get. And there is no peace. There is no peace partner. There is no. First of all, it's ours, and it's not. There is no Palestinian people. There is no Palestinian history. It belongs to the Jewish people, and I'm not ashamed to tell you that. Especially not the week before Chanukah. Let's speak the truth about what it means to be a Jew in the land of Israel. But besides that, to perpetuate this idolatrous false god of a two-state solution, as if as soon as you give them the state, we're going to live in harmony. Look at the harmony now. Look at the signs outside the Palestinian villages warning Jews that if they enter into there, they're at risk of life. Look at what happens on a peaceful Friday night in a Jewish community where everyone has to lock themselves in and pretend that we're in Nazi Germany because they're out in the streets looking to kill us. This is the promise of the two-state solution. Understand? So let America weigh all of that when they decide whether or not they should recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital, because nothing has changed here.
Just to change the subject slightly, because it's really all the same subject. You mentioned earlier, talking about Hanukkah, that Hanukkah is the one Jewish holiday throughout the year that we're required to be in our homes, because we are mefarsim, we are advertising this great miracle from our homes.
Because it was a battle for the home.
It was a battle for the home.
Because
exactly.
the Temple Mount is Hashem's home, and this country, this land is our home.
Exactly what I wanted to say. The Temple Mount, the Holy Temple, is God's home, and it is our home as well. It's the home of the Jewish nation. It's the home of who we are, our identity, our connection with God, our relationship with God. It all begins there and spreads out from there and fills the world. And that is the significance of Hanukkah, and that's the significance of celebrating it from our homes. And that same battle, of course, is on today, and not just for the recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, but for Jewish freedom of worship on the Temple Mount, and of course, for the fulfillment of our dream and God's dream of a holy temple. And I'd like to report that the number of Jews that are going up to the Temple Mount in purity to worship, of course, worshiping silently at the time, because Jewish Israeli policy does not allow Jews to pray openly on the Temple Mount, but the number of those Jews going up is increasing every day, every week, every month. And the police are recognizing this, and in fact there have been news articles, police are making special preparations in light of the anticipated very, very large numbers of Jews who will be ascending the Mount over the 8 days of Hanukkah. And in the past, the police would, I think, go out of their way not to make preparations, and then say, oh, we're not prepared, you can't go up, it's closed. But of course, policy and the attitude of the police has changed over the past 2 years. And it's very, very encouraging to see that the police are making special preparations in order to enable large numbers of Jews and other God-fearing people who want to go up throughout Hanukkah. And just this week, there was an interesting incident. I shouldn't say incident. A number of Jews actually went up and were permitted by the police to go up to what's referred to as the Ramah, which is the highest elevation on the mount, right outside the dome. And there's a bit of a controversy about that, because we stay away from that area because of the sanctity of that area, because that's where the temple and its inner courtyard actually stood. However, there is a concept that a Jew can go in that area if it's for the purpose of demonstrating sovereignty over the area. And so that seems to be the motivation of this group that went up. But it has gotten a lot of attention in the Arab social media. And it's just another aspect of all the movement and energy that's being focused on and generated from Jerusalem in these days as we approach the holiday of Hanukkah. So we'll see, Rabbi. We'll see if President Trump is going to make an announcement. We'll see. Some people are saying that, well, he didn't sign the waiver, but that doesn't mean that anything's going to happen. Because, I mean, that's always another great possibility, right? That he won't sign the waiver, but won't do anything about it anyway. So, whew, you know, there's still hope for the wicked. There's still hope for the wicked. Right?
Why do I need someone's favors?
Exactly.
Well, I mean, thanks a lot. You know what I mean?
Thanks a lot. Who needs it? Oh, here's the music. Rabbi, it's been great being back. And I hope that all you listeners are happy to have us back as well. And
keep those cards and letters coming.
Keep those cards and letters coming. We'll be back again next week on the eve of Hanukkah. But for now, this has been Temple Talk.